It may mean that he disappears into Buffelshoek, or he may decide to go back to the kill. At the moment, though, I think that is relatively unlikely. Now, while we were sitting here, Dave and myself saw something amazing pop itself out of the tree, and I'm sort of hoping that he might decide to come back out once again. Now, off to the east of me is a tree with a perfect hiding place. Now, Stef was talking about the potential of it being a snake upsetting the birds. We saw a lizard pop out of... Oh, sorry. It was me leaning on the box. Pop out of this crack in the bark over there. And he was basking in the sun. Unfortunately, I spotted him just as another vehicle pulled up, and he disappeared back into his hole. But hopefully, our Agama decides to come back out, and we'll be able to show you him. I've been looking for a picture of him in my book, but I'm struggling for some silly reason. I'm being very silly. Somewhere in here, I know there's a nice picture. Sorry, guys. At least you've got a beautiful leopard to keep you entertained while I page through and try and find the picture of the lizard that I just saw. Okie dokie. Well, it seems as though we have a vote coming through, and as always, democracy counts. So what we will do is you'll come on a journey with me off-road, and you'll get to see just how complex it is negotiating that particular spot. We'll go and have a look at the kill, and then we will return to Mvula. Just by the way, the mating lions that were on the property this morning have actually moved off. They were chased by elephants, and it seems as though they have headed across into Buffelshoek around Sydney's dam. Alright, let's go off. Let's head across and see whether or not Sindile has decided to go to the kill. If he hasn't, we'll come back out, we'll go check the water, and then we'll come back here again. Let us go and investigate. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye, Mvula. We'll be back to see him later, hopefully, unless he moves off. The nice thing is that Ephraim is here, so he will be able to keep an eye on him for us while we're gone. Alright, let's go and investigate the kill. Our stations, I'm leaving Mvula lying flat cat close to Buffelshoek cut line with Ephraim on lock, space for 2. Okie, let us go. You ready for this, Dave?
Oh, yes.
Dave and I have done this road many times. We've been down this road many times before. It's starting to become a little bit of a road, actually. Okay. Oh, I never shut my door after I that would have been fun. Can you imagine tumbling down, leaning on the door and tumbling into the drainage line? That would have been very entertaining for everyone concerned except me. That was when I went and rescued my lip ice. I didn't want to frighten Mvula by slamming the door, so I just left it open. Ah, that would have been terribly entertaining. Okay. There is a good chance that Sindile is going to be around. And the reason I say that is because he's been in captivity for so long, and because he is so young. Whilst he is a proficient, he's clearly shown that he is capable of surviving. I think a lot of his survival has been based on scavenging, picking up carcasses, and all leopards scavenge regularly, more so than we might expect them to. But I think especially for Sindile, a great deal of his meals, well done Dave, have been acquired through picking up scraps of other predators' meals. So there's a good chance he's not going to pass up, even though there's very little food left on this carcass. It's a good chance he's not going to pass up the opportunity to feed off it some more, especially with Mvula being all the way over there. Okie dokie. path. There's a couple of different routes into this particular spot. While we do this, Gail was wondering about the way in which Sindile was quarantined when he was in captivity, and how they managed to keep him from becoming too used to humans. And obviously we saw now when I went to try and find him again just how skittish he has become, which is, as I said, a really, really good thing. Now, Gail, what they would have done, I didn't visit the enclosure obviously, but what they would have done in the time that he was quarantined was they would have put him in a enclosure, that what we call a boma, but essentially a fenced area, and they would have put shade cloth all around the side in order to prevent him from becoming used to the idea of people, and most importantly associating people with food. Now, either they would have, to feed him, either they would have turfed the kills over the wall without him realizing that there were people there, so just throwing them over, whatever they happened to feed him off, or they would have had a cage-like system that could have been closed off from view, so they would have put the food inside there and then opened up the door without him ever associating the food with human beings. And that is really, really important, because if they hadn't done that in the way that they have, and they clearly have done it very well, let's just check carefully here while we go along. They've clearly done it well, because he is nervous of people on foot, which is a good thing. The last thing you want is a leopard that has... Oh, he's there. Yay! Hey, what wonderful news. Yay. Okay, I think we're going to find a nicer position this way. Or we're going to have to try and go around the other side. Oh, goodness gracious. Hello, Sindile. I'm glad to see you still here. Yes, a leopard that has come back from captivity with no fear of humans is a very, very dangerous creature. Hello. That is... Oh, it is him. For 1 second there, I didn't see the collar, and I thought perhaps we had a different leopard, and I was about to be aghast at the drama that this particular tambuti tree has seen. But nope, that is our Sindile. The name that means survivor, and a leopard that has been through so much over the last few months. Let me explain the situation as quickly as possible for new viewers, because we do have new viewers jumping on board with us every single drive. The reason that this leopard has that big collar around his neck is because about a year ago, during one of our live safaris, we were called in to Sindile. Brent actually was called in to a sighting of Sindile. He was just a year old, and he had made a kill, probably, or almost made a kill, probably the biggest thing that he had ever caught. Unfortunately for him, it was a stray dog that had wandered in from the townships or the surrounding villages on the outskirts of the reserve. Now, what happens with dogs in that situation is when they do come into reserves, you can almost guarantee that they are rabid, because otherwise they don't leave the shelter of the villagers, but they become disoriented and confused. Very sadly, that dog tested positive for rabies, and thus the authorities were left with a very, very difficult decision. Sindile was captured and given a series of vaccinations during his 8 months in quarantine, and then released at around 20 months old back into the wild once again. That happened at the beginning of May. Now, that collar is around his neck in order to keep track of his movements. It looks tight, I promise you it isn't. It is geared towards dropping off as he grows older, and once it does reach the point where it's time for it to drop off, so it will drop off when it is too tight. However, a too loose collar is far more dangerous. A loose collar is far more dangerous than a tight collar, because what happens is the animals catch themselves on branches and sticks, especially an animal like a leopard that spends its life climbing up and down trees. And obviously this has been fitted and carried out by experts who essentially have saved Sindile's life. Years ago, if a leopard had been seen with a dog, he would have, by law in the country, he would have been killed. So Sindile, our little survivor, has proved to be an incredible leopard. He wandered around. After he was released, he tried to reunite with his mom's shadow. Unfortunately, his mom's shadow has a brand new cub, and she was not having any of it. And so, Sindile wanders around, scavenging off kills, although Herbert is convinced that he made this impala kill, and that he was sharing it with the leopard that we have just been with a moment ago. They had a bit of a scrap this morning, lots of sound and fury, but actually it was relatively harmless. Yay! I'm glad that he's here, and that he hasn't gone too far away. Is there a more iconic image than a leopard sprawled across the protective boughs of a tambuiti tree? Not that this is the most comfortable looking tree in the world, but it is a beautiful image nonetheless. I thought about going around to the other side of the bank. First of all, that's going to take me a long time, and second of all, I actually think our view would be totally obscured by the branches of that particular tree. So I think we'll stick with our view for now. It's a pity we can't see his face, but he might not stay in that position the entire time. Our stations, this younger daughter is now back in Shlashla. Robin Lee, a random question while we watch our young leopard with his impala dinner. Now, Robin Lee, aloha to you too from Hawaii. Robin wanted to know what foods we miss the most when we are out in the bush. Now, we, of course, at WildEarth are incredibly fortunate in that we have the lovely Amanda and, at the moment, Tundi taking care of us and cooking for us, and we can't complain. I miss sushi. I really do. It's one of the first things I do when I get back into a city. I eat sushi, and I often will eat Chinese food as well. Those are usually my first two things that I go and grab. Dave? Pizza? Oh, yes, by the way, Jerry's gone into Hoedspruit, and Jerry will be bringing me back takeaway pizza for tonight. I'm very, very excited. So Dave says he misses pizza. Dave, you can have a couple of slices of mine.
Thanks, Jamie.
That's a pleasure.
Can I read?
Yes, of course you can. Trust me, I wouldn't have offered if I didn't mean it. I don't part with my food easily. A little bit like Mvula and Sindile. That's generally, you'll find for us, we miss fast food, which is ridiculous. Not all of us. James, of course, would, I never let such an unhealthy thing pass his lips. Oh, big stretch there from Sindile. Looks as though he's about to fall out of the tree. He won't, though. It's the one thing he has mastered. But when he was a cub, we used to watch him fall out of trees all the time. He was such an incredible leopard when he was little. He was always up to something naughty and entertaining. Hunting buffalo, which of course he'd never been able to hunt. Waterbuck, again, too big. He'd climb a tree and fall out of it. He'd jump on Mom. He was just all round thoroughly entertaining. He's also, when you do get to see him, very beautiful. Young male leopards really are stunning. But at the moment, he's not playing along. What else do I miss in terms of food? My mom's curry, I think, is one of them. And we have a viewer called Sick198, the 198th Sick username, Sick198. Have we ever witnessed odd or unusual behavior from an animal? Sure. Yes, all the time. Although I suppose it depends on what you describe as odd or unusual. So, the animals, as we've always said, don't read the textbooks. They do what they want. And it's usually up to us to try and interpret or look for an explanation behind their behavior. For example, I had a female elephant pin a young bull to the ground, and I have absolutely no idea to this day what her problem was or what he did wrong. There was something that happened there, but that might not have been odd behavior. It's just that I don't have an explanation for it. This is going to be beautiful. Dave is being artistic. Dave, of course, is very artistic, so he's providing us with a beautiful view of the setting sun. The good news, of course, is that we can actually, now that the kill is up in the tree, as is Sindile, we can stay here and spotlight them, which we couldn't do yesterday because the kill was on the ground. So we didn't want to run the risk of them having it stolen by our hyena clan. Odd and unusual behavior is a difficult one, because our understanding of the animals out here is always broadening. So what we think is odd and unusual is just perhaps we haven't seen or found an explanation behind it. Aggressive animals, and I say use aggressive very, very reluctantly, there's usually a reason behind it. Either they've been pushed, they've got bad memories associated with vehicles, they've got, in elephant's case, a tooth abscess which is hurting them. This scenario, though, to SIC 182, I think it was. Was it 182 or 180? I think it was 182. Well, whatever. Sorry, my number memory has gone away. This situation is truly incredible. This is very, very unusual. To see the scenario, I have never ever followed a story where a leopard of Sindile's age has been removed from the wild, then put back in the wild, during which time his mother has had another cub. He's encountered a previously dominant male, in the case of Mvula, who may or may not be his father. It's unlikely, but it's entirely possible. Never discount that possibility. It could be his father that he was sharing the kill with. And you've got a case of two leopards that don't really want to risk serious injury to each other, so I think Brent described it as a gentleman's agreement. I'm not quite sure young Sindile qualifies as a gentleman just yet. He's not even quite an adult just yet. But he has certainly proved his skills and survival abilities. And right now, much like Mvula, proving just how good leopards are at sleeping. And the lions take the gold medal for Olympic sleeping ability, but leopards come in at a very close second when they have full bellies like this. I'm glad to see that he did make his way back to the kill. He was quite the surprise when I went for a little bit of a walk, though he's obviously trekked all the way back up the drainage line and back up into the tree. And woe is Wendy, wounded Wendy, still being examined closely by Opa. No wonder she tried to turf Brent into the drainage line this morning. A major clutch problem. That was apparently a very interesting moment. I actually still haven't watched it. But Wendy this morning, on this very steep embankment that we currently find ourselves on, except on the other side of the drainage line, Wendy attempted to roll forward. From where we enter on that side, you can sort of see the two tracks there on the right of the termite mound. That's where we drive in on that side. And Wendy apparently attempted to send both Brent and Gert careering into a very steep drainage line. And as Brent said, if that hadn't happened, they would have actually hit the tambuti tree that had two leopards in it. Neither scenario would have been ideal. Let's put it that way. I believe that Brent got quite the surprise. While we watch our lovely leopard snooze his evening away, we've gone from one flat leopard to another flat leopard, just one on the ground, one in the tree. Arcadia would like to know if I could have anyone living or dead on the back of the vehicle, who would it be? Do I only get one option? Do I only get one choice? Arcadia, I have an easy answer to that. I have an answer, but it's a difficult one because there's so many great figures of history that I would love for them to be able to experience moments like this. But Arcadia, my answer has to be, I would really, really have loved to have been able to take my grandfather out on a game drive. My grandfather spent most of his adult life wandering around this area, working as a game warden, working as a mining consultant. I don't really 100% know what he was doing. Most of the time he was just wandering around looking for Paul Kruger's millions. But he raised a lion cub before she got too big, and he had to have her released. He absolutely loved the bush, and I think that's where my love of the bush came from. And unfortunately, by the time I qualified as a guide, he was already sort of at the point where it was very difficult to travel with him, obviously age starting to take its toll, and he has unfortunately since then passed away. But I think it would have made his day. He kind of knew what I was doing towards the end, but he wasn't fully aware of exactly what was going on, and I really would have loved to have been able to, as my memories of him from being a little girl, I would have loved to have taken him out on a game drive. I think that would have been really, truly special. Perhaps wherever he is watching us, looking down upon Sindile and Mvula and all of our different characters, and correcting everybody else's grammar, and writing lovely poems, which he used to love to do, and drawing pictures of the animals. Or walking his dogs, his many, many out-of-control dogs, that resulted in many, many knee injuries throughout his life, teaching them to chase monkeys. Oh dear, poor Wendy. Wendy is down and out for the count. It looks as though perhaps Stef may not be back once again out on our safari, which is most unfortunate, and it does tell us that the vehicle problem was considerably worse than Brent realized when he went off this morning. And of course, being off on a very, very exciting venture, which we will talk a little bit more of towards the end of the Sunset Safari. Fortunately, we have this marvelously active leopard in front of us, doing all kinds of things to keep us entertained, giving us a slight glimpse of a canine tooth and twitching ears. And Dina, good point. Just speaking a bit about, I touched on this, but I didn't really go into it. Speaking about how we would refer to Sindile at nearly 2 years old. I wonder if he's dreaming. It doesn't look like it's movement in response to flies. Twitching his whiskers around. But good point. Is he classified as an adult or a sub-adult? There's always a point at which there's some disagreement in terms of the classification of animals and where exactly they turn from a sub-adult to an adult. In my opinion, I would still call him a sub-adult, to be 100% honest with you. If it were a normal situation, he would be almost completely independent from mom. And sorry, bear with me, I'm cold now that the sun has disappeared below the horizon, as is Dave. Apparently, he's also feeling a little bit chilly. So while we shuffle our jackets on, I would think of him as a sub-adult, just because at this age, normally, under normal situations, a male leopard would not have gone terribly far away from mommy. They'd be hanging around her natal range still, and still paying a visit to her every now and again. I would say that at about 2.5, that is where I would absolutely classify a male as an adult. The weird thing is with leopards, of course, is that the females become independent far quicker than the males do from their mothers, and they actually move off on their own far sooner. And so I wonder if you would move forward the classification. I don't know, I mean, it's nothing that has ever been formalized in terms of the way in which I refer to them. I still think of, but maybe that's just because we missed out on 8 months of his life, that I still think of a Sindile as a sub-adult. A sub-adult isn't necessarily even an official term in certain circles. Oh, hello, boy. Hello, boy. Oh, back to sleep. That look very clearly seemed to convey, I'm an adult, I don't know what you're talking about. And I suppose perhaps we should give him credit where credit is due. He's done a marvelous... Oh, careful. Hold on 1 second, I just need to contact tax. Careful, Sindile, you're going to fall out of that tree. Ah, up he goes. I'm waiting for my opportunity to have this conversation. Currently conversation occurring. Oh, here we go. Is this it? Nope, no it's not. Almost. I can hear Taxon leaving. Come on, let me talk, please. Tax. Got to be quick off the mark with this radio. This young my daughter's back here. No, okay, fair enough. That's fine with me. We will have our sighting of Sindile all to ourselves. Apparently, just by the way, an update on Mvula, he is still fast asleep where we left him. You can see the rapid breathing from Sindile. Rapid rise and fall of his chest. It's because he's digesting. So, first of all, as I said with Mvula, that process is making him very warm. Second of all, shame he really can't find a comfortable spot. Even with a leopard's gift for making an uncomfortable spot look comfortable, he does not look comfortable. Constantly shifting. Yes, the digestion of all of that meat, producing lots of heat, and also such a full belly, pushes up against the diaphragm itself, reducing the lung capacity a little bit. And he's lying on his belly, which makes things even more uncomfortable. How absolutely 100% remarkable. Contrary to all expectations and beliefs, it seems as though wounded Wendy has managed to be fixed. We have, of course, the guardian angel of WildEarth to thank, and by that, of course, I'm referring to Opa, who deals with all of our nonsense with our broken vehicles on a pretty much a daily basis. Let's head across to Stef and find out what he's up to now that he's back on Wendy.
O ye of little faith. No, the magician Opa was back at it again. And it seems like what we've got a problem with a missing spring. And that spring jumps out every now and again, causing too much pressure to go through the clutch system, which causes liquid to pump out. And that's what caused this particular one. So we just put that back. And now we are going to watch the sun set through the trees. That's our plan. We've decided to come up onto this little bit of an elevated ridge here and share with you the last few rays of today. It's always amazing at how quick the sun disappears, or rises and disappears actually at this particular latitude. And we are just south of the Tropic of Capricorn. And although that doesn't mean much, it does mean that the sun rises and sets pretty quick. With the quickest being on the equator, where the Earth spins at roughly 1,666 kilometers per hour. And as I was talking, the sun has disappeared, basically as quick as that. So boom, sunset. And we have a very short twilight in South Africa. We probably have another about say 20 minutes or so of it being twilight like it is at the moment, and then it'll be pitch black, and then we'll be forced to use our spotlights and go and look for all the nocturnal goodies. Now, the plan for the evening portion of this particular drive is to try and look after Wendy, I think, as a primary goal, but also to go and follow up on some lion tracks that I saw around Buffelshoek Dam while we were limping back here. The tracks go straight to the water, and I think that there's a good chance that the Nkuhuma pride, which is a pride of lion that lives in that particular area of Djuma into Torchwood and then across north into Buffelshoek, our neighbouring properties, there's a chance that they are in that area, in that particular area, and they came down to drink either early this morning or it was after game drive, just before it got a little bit too hot, and are lying up in that particular area again, which is quite exciting news. So I didn't see any of their tracks at the dam itself, but I did see tracks of a female and of a youngster, and I'm gathering that either that female is there in that area with her babies, or the entire pride is there somewhere in that area. So we're off to go and see that, and hopefully we'll either be lucky or we won't. For those of you who have watched me on vehicle-based safaris before, you'll notice that quite often anything I predict is exactly the opposite of what happens in reality. So we will probably end up somewhere close to Arethusa's main camp before the sun goes, or before the safari ends, if history has anything to do with it. But we're going to aim for a sort of easterly vector, I think. So, good evening, Arcadia. You've asked me if I would have anyone living or dead present on the back of the vehicle. Who would it be? Whoa, that's a big one. I don't know. I'm quite interested in these greats that the world seems to throw up from time to time. And by greats, I mean massive personalities that get things right on a global scale. Most recently would be probably Bill Gates, I would imagine. Going back through the ages, it would be people like Albert Einstein, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great. Oh, you know, we could name them all. I'm just busy thinking in my mind back to one of my son's history books and the pictures that he's got in them. But anyone that is great. I think living, it would have to be Stephen Hawking, only because I enjoy that man's vision of where we are in space and time, and I'd dearly love to have him on the back of our vehicle while we go on the safari. So living. Dead, it would probably be, I don't actually know. Let me think about that for a little bit there before I get back to you on that one. All right, and here we have Karula's fresh track, so fresh indeed that I think we've probably just driven straight past her. Coming up Philemon's Dip. Let me see if I can show them to you. Excuse my funny facial expressions. It's not uncommon for me to stick my tongue out while I'm concentrating quite hard. Let me get out and show you the track, and it'll also give us some time to see if maybe we didn't. Quite often adult female leopard will wait for you to drive past and then jump out of the road back onto the track. But basically, can you see these tracks here? Let me see. There we go. Basically, we have a track right here. It's made up of a front foot track, which is this one here, and a back foot track, which is this one here. And leopard are supposed to register when they're walking at a normal gait, which means that their front foot gets stepped on by their back foot. In this particular case, her back foot has overstepped her front foot quite dramatically, and this tells me that she was moving incredibly fast up the road here. So it could be for any number of reasons that she's moving fast up the road here. I know it's an adult female leopard, just judging from the size. That's the size of an adult female leopard. Put my hand next to it for some size. Or size comparison at least. And I know it's a female because if you have a look over here, you'll notice that there's quite an acute angle there. On that part of her pad, here as well, an acute angle there. Males have a round, are rounded. Their track would look rounded and then make that characteristic third hump. Females go out and come in and then have that. Let me see if I can get it right. There we go. So females have an acute angle on the back of their planter's pad on the side. Males are very much more rounded and bigger. Why I say this is fresh, these tracks are very sharp. You can have a look at the edge here. Very, very sharp track there. And this road is used quite heavily. So I would imagine that Karula, adult female in this area, they're very territorial, wouldn't be another female. Might be, but the chances are quite low. Karula is en route to the lodge if she's not there already. Have a look at the dam cam at Vuyatela. She might be over there. There was some impala around the area. Absolutely keep your eye on that camera tonight. She might come out. And she's heading straight towards where Sindile and Mvula are. Who knows why? Maybe she's wanting to... Oh. Apparently I've got no sound. The dam cam is down. All right. So the dam cam is down, so you won't be able to go there. But she's going to come out of this lodge. I think I'm going to turn around. As I predicted, there's something that comes along that absolutely derails my plan for looking for the Nkumas. Let's see if we can't find her and find out what she's doing in this area. Not forgetting she's got those 2 cubs at the moment. All right, so let's turn the car around and let's see in which direction her tracks leave the road. All right, and while I scan the side of the road here, and I promise you, do not offer you the best or most entertaining view of the back of my head for the next 10 minutes or so, let's send you through to Jamie with Mvula and Sindile.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with the back of Stef's head. I think it's highly entertaining. Anyway, moving on to dozing Sindile, as he attempts once again to find himself a comfortable spot, which he hasn't really managed to do. It doesn't look all that... especially on the rough tambuti bark, it must make it even more uncomfortable. I'm just looking at him and thinking he's close to 2 years old now. I can't remember exactly what month he was born in, but he must be close to 2. I think Sindile is going to be big. I really do. Now, I'm not sure if that's Tingana's genetics coming through, Tingana being one of the potential fathers of Sindile. Oh, and of course he also potentially is the great Anderson male's son. Not that I've yet to see the Anderson male, but I've heard many stories. And I have to tell you, I really do think he's going to be a big boy. There's just something about his size and the amount that he has grown in just the time that I saw him in... When did I see him? June. Yes, it was June. It was during the Father's Day specials. In June, when I first saw him, it was the first time I'd seen him since he'd been released, there's a marked size difference in just a month's time, which I think is quite incredible. I really think he's going to give a few leopards a run for their money. And if he manages to survive this difficult time, and so far he's been doing a marvelous job of it, if he manages to survive this difficult time, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I hope that he stays within an area where we get to see him, but even if he doesn't, hopefully he'll stay in the Sabi Sand and we'll be able to keep track of his movements. And there we go. Anna in Connecticut is guessing at the length of him. And Anna says from the tip of his nose to the tip of his tail, he looks to be about 2 to 8 feet long. Would that be a good guess? Absolutely, that would be a very good guess. I would say closer to 6. I would say that is. I think it's closer to 6 than 8 feet would be my estimate, just looking at him in the tree. He's just a little, he's just a little bit longer than me. I wouldn't put him much longer just yet. And that tail, of course, adds a good 3 feet onto his length. But 6 feet is a good guess in terms of how long he is. That, for those of you not dealing in feet, that's about 2 meters long, close to 2 meters long. They are actually massive animals. We're just used to seeing them in comparison to lions, where they look much smaller, but they are big cats, the second biggest in South Africa. The other contender, of course, is the cheetah, which is just as long, and which we nearly saw this morning on the sunrise safari. Unfortunately, despite their shining fresh tracks in the dirt, they had crossed south into Mala before we got to see them. Hopefully they will be back at some point in the next few days, because I'm starting to feel we've had a serious cheetah drought over the last 2 weeks or so. Not that I can complain too much, because we really have had the most marvelous experiences. And somewhere, we don't know where, because nobody's managed to find them today, but somewhere the Nkuhuma Pride with their little cubs must be hiding. I'm sure they managed to kill something last night. They were determinedly hunting. I have no doubt that they were successful. It's just a question of where they happen to manage to accomplish that. Now, chances are, I don't know, I hesitate to say this, I don't think Sindile is going to be here tomorrow morning. I think Mvula is already going to be moving off, and I think that Sindile will probably be gone. However, I can promise you that we will be back to check up on him first thing tomorrow morning on the sunrise safari via the hyena dens, naturally, just to see whether or not there's any sign of them, because I'm determined that Gwen is still on the property, the new mother of our brand new set of hyena cubs, and we haven't seen her in at least 2 weeks. I'm absolutely dying to see those cubs and how big they've got, but we just haven't managed to be lucky in terms of relocating her. I'm hoping she hasn't moved them back to where the rest of the clan is, on Manuleti. So that's a summary of our big cats and hyenas and where they all are at present time. Shadow, by the way, just speaking of updates, Shadow is Sindile's mother. She has a 4-month-old cub with her, little female, full of cheek and courage. I really, really like Shadow's little cub. And they've been found on Hoffman's, so south of our boundary. So a cub is alive and well. And speaking of our spotted cats, Shamel, when did we last see Tingana? We last saw Tingana. I don't know. I don't know when we last saw Tingana. I'm sorry, Shamel. However, he is on Torchwood. Sorry, another update I forgot to give you. He is fast asleep next to a termite mound on Torchwood, the property to the east of our boundary. We just missed seeing him as well this morning. First thing in the morning, he wandered past. Last night, he walked through Djuma, found his tracks. He walked through Djuma, into Cheetah Plains, did a big circle, and went north into Torchwood. So he is alive and well in Torchwood. He's managed to kind of duck us, because 2 days ago he was on Shirley's, which is south and west of Arathusa airstrip. He then clearly walked through our property today, or last night, and he has dodged us. Hopefully, however, he is on his way, although throwing him into the mix makes for a very confusing situation. He is probably, just because Tingana often walks regular pathways, in the same way Karula often walks regular pathways, he is probably going to come through onto Buffelshoek Cut Line, which is very, very close to where we are now. So there's a chance that he's going to pass through here sometime tonight. Last I heard on the Game Drive channel, he was fast asleep on Torchwood, but chances are, now that he's done his territorial marking and boundary patrol, he's going to start moving across in this direction, unless he encounters something and makes a kill. So we've got a good chance of finding Tingana on the sunrise safari tomorrow morning. I'll put in a special effort for him as well. I feel like we've had so many cat sightings, it gets difficult to decide what to look for whenever you head out on drive. Shall I take leopards or lions today? Maybe some cheetah thrown into the mix. We've just been spoilt. It's good to see Sindile looking so healthy and happy. Sindile, once again readjusting his comfortable spot. Now, there's plenty of speculation as to Sindile's father, and of course we will never know, and we won't know until we finally hear the results behind the DNA test that Panthera is carrying out on the various leopards of the Sabi-San. And we may have to wait. Oh, hold on. Oh, shame, boy. He's not comfortable. He doesn't want to go down onto the ground because he knows that the smell of that kill is going to attract hyenas at some point. Although at this point he is more than a match for a hyena. He's much faster and more agile. Just can't quite find a comfortable spot. But yes, there's plenty of speculation. Dave, just go into his side there. Right there. Oh, it's just the branch. I thought perhaps he had an injury. But he's fine. My mistake. Kelly, there's the reason that we speculate so much as to his potential paternity is because female leopards are incredibly promiscuous when it comes to mating with different males, and they do that deliberately. It's an evolutionary advantage in order to trick all of the dominant male leopards, or all male leopards in the area, into thinking they have fathered her cubs. Because the biggest threat to a cub under the age of 1 year old in leopard terms is a strange male leopard. But you wanted to know about whether there's any physical attribute that a female leopard is attracted to, since you know there's studies that seem to suggest that female lionesses are more attracted to males with dark manes. In general, you will find the biggest, strongest male mating with a female in an area. That's just because they're dominant, they're constantly patrolling the area, and they will not tolerate the presence of any other male leopard in her vicinity. So I can't think of anything particularly. The bigger the male leopard, often the bigger their dewlap, the flap of skin around the front of their neck. And you might find that there's a correlation between females mating with males with a bigger dewlap as opposed to a smaller dewlap. However, I think that will probably just be it's correlation not equaling causation. I think that they would have been mating with that male anyway because he's bigger. There are even cases where a female has been mating with two big dominant male leopards at one time. And what I mean by that is when they both come upon a female in estrus, if they don't want to risk fighting with each other or risk the injury to each other, it's similar to our gentleman's agreement that we've had here. And there are recorded cases of a female just mating with both of them. She'll move from one to the other. Size counts in the leopard world, but it's also proximity. A female leopard that finds a male leopard, she'll go and mate with him. And she has that repetitive, the repeated matings, and leopards mate even more frequently than lions do. We've seen them recently with Shaluva and Mvula mating pretty much every 2 minutes. And she'll do that because her ovulation, the release of her eggs, is stimulated by the repeated mating process. And that, in turn, is an adaptation to give the biggest and strongest male time to establish his dominance over her and over the other males around her and pass on the best possible genetics to her cubs. But that doesn't mean that if a female leopard comes upon a 4-year-old male and there's no dominant male leopard in the area, doesn't mean that she won't mate with him. The trick is for them to mate with as many males as they possibly can. And the same applies to lionesses. So although they mate mainly with the dominant coalition in an area, if they happen upon a nomadic male, I'm just listening to the Game Drive comms. The guys are frantically searching for those lions, but they still haven't managed to find them. So it is a leopard-filled rather than a lion-filled afternoon today. And speaking of different leopards, let us find out from Stef how his search for Karula is going and what his plans are for the next few moments of the sunset safari.
Thank you very much, Jamie. I can confirm that Karula has her 2 cubs with her. Just a little bit after we turned around, the cubs joined the road. They were sitting on top of a termite mound, obviously before I got there, but they were sitting on top of a termite mine just a little bit down the road. They rejoined her. So we do know that it's Karula, and I know that she's somewhere in the vicinity of Gallagher and Vuyatela Lodge right now. We're just battling to find her. And she's brought her cubs all the way up the side. I think it's for the first time with this particular litter. It's not uncommon for Karula, a leopard female in this area, quite a well-established leopard female in this particular area, to bring her cubs to Gallagher and Vuyatela. I think she's even had 1 or 2 litters underneath the decks here. So it's a place that's well known to her. But for me, the easiest way to find leopard is to switch the engine off and to use my senses, particularly my ears, and also to come and check on all the impala herds in the area. Now, I'm under the understanding, or I'm under the belief, let me rather say, because it's probably easier to put my faith in that, that leopard know exactly where the different impala herds move, from what area to what area and when, and they come and check on the various impala herds in an area. And that's my hypothesis anyway. And right here is the impala herd that lives on top of quarantine. And you can see they've moved into the open. They spend their day in the thick bush around the edges of these clearings, and then they move out onto the clearings at night time, which makes it a lot more difficult for predators to actually catch them and sneak up on them. It's one of their defense mechanisms, and these impala quite often alert us to the presence of predators by giving their very distinctive alarm snort when they see predators walking up and down this road. And this road that I'm on in particular is patrolled by all the leopards in this particular area. I've seen Mvula on here, Tingana on here, Karula on numerous occasions. I'm just wondering if she's not in this particular area right now. She's obviously not here right now. That's the dominant ram. He'd be responsible for most of the pregnancies amongst these female impala. They're almost all pregnant. All the adults will be pregnant. What he's doing there is a female has urinated onto that spot. He's then licked up that urine, and by flaring that top lip of his, he's activated an organ in the roof of his mouth, which allows him to analyze the chemistry of that particular urine. He's going to do it again with that females. There he stands there, licks his lips, adding a little bit of his own. Not the most dignified pose that we can have on this male, and I think on that note we'll probably end up moving on. Let's carry on our search for Karula. So she's obviously not pesting these impala just yet. What I think we're going to do is move around to the dam side of the lodge and see if she hasn't passed in front of the camp, in front of where Brent and Jamie stay. The tracks, I only saw tracks of the one young cub going in that direction. I actually thought she was heading straight towards quarantine and would come out somewhere here on one of these roads. But she hasn't made it quite across the clearing just yet, which is understandable. She would want to stick to the thicker bush areas if she had made this traverse during the day. And I think that that's exactly what she would have done. Walking fast, leopard tend to walk quite fast during the day. Cubs were going from termite mound to termite mound, boisterously moving across the road in front of us. That's what I read from the tracks in any case. And she was either moving onto this open area or in front of it down to the water. Let's go down there and go and have a look. Now, I tend to move from one area to another relatively quickly, and that's so that I can go into an area and then switch off and listen. Because as she'll be moving, she'll be disturbing the bush around her. She'll be disturbing nyala and kudu and bushbuck and all manner of birds and animals, and they would be reacting to that and giving alarm calls and alarm snorts, and that's what we'd be listening to. Yes, absolutely. James Richard has just made a very, very agreeable comment there. And James, you've said it's nice to know that the cubs are still doing so well and seem to be in good health. And just judging from the way that their tracks were spread out on the road, zigzagging left and right, I can say that they're probably in very good health at the moment. So I share that sentiment. I'm sure everyone else does with you out there, James. And we're all very happy that Karula's managing to keep both young cubs alive and well. And that's just from her tracks. Let's see if she's down here now. I've switched my engine off. And I'm looking to see if there's any tracks crossing here. This is a notoriously difficult area to track, actually. And the reason for that is because it's so open. There's so many paths for a leopard to choose from. But it's quite difficult to predict where tracks would cross or where they're likely to cross. In thicker bush areas, you just use game paths. But in these particular areas, it becomes a bit more tricky. Now, there's nothing here that I can see. I think what I am going to do is go and definitely check the water. And get my spotlight ready. Let's go and check the water. I don't think she'll bring her cubs down to drink. It's a fairly exposed place for a leopard female to bring cubs of that age down to the water to drink in open daylight or even in twilight like this. There is a good chance that she's lying up just watching and seeing what's coming to the water. Making use of the dry time here. She's definitely not drinking. Making use of the dry time and the concentrations that it produces amongst all the herbivores. It's not uncommon for leopard and lion to use these water points as staging posts for their ambushes on the various animals. I think we'll carry on going down Twin Dams Road. And just judging from these particular cubs' behavior of them going up termite mounds and playing, that's exactly where I'm going to be concentrating my eyes over the next couple of minutes. But while we do that, you are lucky enough to be able to share the safari with one of Karula's previous cubs. Oh no, sorry, not Karula's previous cubs, one of Shadow's previous cubs. Excuse me, that was almost a gross miscalculation on my part. In any case, we are going to send you back to Sindile with Jamie. See you later.
Back across to Karula's grandson, Sindile. And we've tried to reposition to find ourselves a slightly better view of him. And we've got at least a view of his face. Now what I'm doing with the spotlight, just by the way, is I'm utilizing the edge of it rather than shining it directly upon him. Just because we are looking at him straight face on, so I don't want to make him uncomfortable in any way. But he's perfectly relaxed and still sleeping off or attempting to sleep off a rather full belly. He just hasn't quite managed to find a special spot just yet. I have to tell you, I'm sure it is absolutely fine. Karula's mothering skills are truly fantastic. I would prefer not to have Karula and her cubs in this proximity to Sindile. They're still a good couple of miles away towards the Djuma Dam. We're on the other side of the Vuyatela Dam, on the northern side. Stef has found her tracks on the southern side. It's just because, ideally, chances are absolutely nothing would happen, but ideally one would prefer not to have a young male leopard around her cubs that isn't directly familiar with her or directly related to them. He is related to them, of course. What would it be? What would it make him? They would be his... Oh, goodness. They would be his aunt and uncle, wouldn't they? Yes, because Karula is his mother's mother, and those are her cubs, therefore, in the strange way of leopard lineages. Lineages? That's not a word. Lineages. Oh, big yawn. in the strange way of leopard family lines. Yes, Karula's brand new 5-month-old cubs, nearly 6-month-old cubs, would be his aunt and uncle in a strange turn of affairs. We spoke about the amazing eyes that Mvula has. I think they are matched only by the beautiful brown eyes of Karula's newest female cub. Sindile's aunt, in a strange way. Oh, this view that I thought I had found that was magnificent hasn't turned out to be quite so special. And welcome to Lucy, who I suspect is one of our newer viewers. Now, Lucy would like to know how it is we come to know the different leopards by their names, since all leopards look the same to her. And Lucy, you are absolutely right. At first glance, all leopards are beautiful spotted cats. Obviously, Sindile is very easy to identify because he's got the tracking collar on him. Lucy, it's amazing. The more time you spend with the animals, they become as easily identifiable as people that you know. And some of our viewers have been watching for many, many years, and they have come to know our leopards exceptionally well. They've watched them for hours at a time. More, I wouldn't even begin to think about how many hours they've racked up in terms of watching the individual leopards. And as a result, you do come to know them. Now, we spoke about the identifying features, the fact that you can look at the leopard's spot patterns. Oh, another big yawn. I think he's thinking about moving. He might even be thinking about feeding. The official way of looking at a leopard's whisker spot patterns, the spot patterns themselves on a leopard's face and the rest of their body. But you really do come to recognize an individual straight off the bat by their size, the shape of their facial features. Karula, for example, her family line, Shadow, her daughter Tandi, they all have slightly more flattened profiles to their face than some of the other leopards out here. And you really do, you come to recognize them very, very quickly. And then, of course, there's the fact that we recognize the individuals by the area that they're in. So Stef has found tracks with cubs around the Djuma Dam and around Quarantine. Now, immediately he knows that is Karula. It's possible, in that sort of slim 1% chance, that it is another female with young cubs. But going that far into Karula's territory, it's highly, highly unlikely, especially with young babies. So you can almost guarantee with 100% certainty that those are Karula's tracks. Just in the same way that when we tracked Sindile from Arethusa, we could almost guarantee that it was him. Before we actually saw him, we knew that we were tracking him. We knew that we were looking for him. And I begged Herbert to help me find him, which he did marvelously. We have him to thank for this incredible sighting. We have me to thank for this slightly ridiculous view. Like, oh, hold on, listen. Lions. Awesome. Watching a leopard in a tree, listening to lions roar. What a beautiful winter's evening. Stations Audio of Ngala. There's one calling between Aubrey's and Gallagher shortcut still. Might even be on Gallagher shortcut itself at this point. And then one that sounds like he's calling from maybe Tambuerti Dam, Buffelshoek Cutline side. And up Sindile goes to feed upon the carcass. Copy that, Tax. I'll check Gallagher shortcut. I'll keep you updated in a moment. Okay, let's try reposition. He's feeding, and he's popped himself in an almost impossible to see position. So while we reposition, let us send you back across to Stef for an update on his side.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And you caught us in the act of one of those moments of silence that I'm having around the area where we last had Karula and the two cubs' tracks, which is not too far away, probably about 100 yards from where we're sitting right now, was the last time that I saw tracks on the road of the cubs and Karula. But what it's also given us is it's given us the most wonderful sunset or twilight view over my head there, and what can probably only be Venus or Jupiter. All right, while we're busy reminiscing like that, we're quickly going to throw you over to Jamie. Sindile is on action again.
I haven't needed to reposition because Sindile has done it for us. But I have to tell you, this is such a beautiful view. I just wanted us to enjoy the silhouette for a moment. I promise I'll put the lights back on just now. Oh, that's so South African. I will put my light on in a moment. He just had this marvelous silhouette, but now he's settled down, so his silhouette is a little bit more indistinct. And we can pop the spotlight back on. There isn't anywhere... oh, wonderful. That's definitely improved matters, hasn't it, Dave?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Well done, Dave. Managing to make up for poor positioning by focusing in through the tambuti leaves. Not an easy thing to do with my light shining on it. Okay, for real, let's reposition. I think we're going to get a better view from the other side. Sorry, everybody. Take my spotlight off because this is a beautiful image. And then let's try and go backwards. Dodge the tambuti tree behind me because we absolutely do not drive over tambuti trees. Turn my backlight on so we don't go careering off the wall. So while I concentrate on not smacking Dave, which I think I've just done, sorry Dave, let's go back to Stef for his sunset.
Have a look at how beautiful that is. I know it's got nothing on a leopard moving around with kills, but I find this quite some of my favorite skies are these winter skies and the stars that come with it and everything else that we can see at the moment. Right now the bush around it is quiet, church mouse quiet. It's quite eerie, the fact that there's nothing going on. I can hear a few thickneys calling in the distance, and I have heard a buffalo bellow, but none of those frantic alarm calls that I'm expecting from a leopard who's moving her cubs through the area. Now, it's not to say that she's not in this area. She might be giving her cubs a little bit of a break. They might be on top of a termite mound. She might be having a bit of a break. It's not easy bringing up two boisterous youngsters, as many of you would know. And there's a good chance that she's gone and lain down somewhere waiting for full darkness before she starts moving around. Nevertheless, it's given us a wonderful opportunity So Tasha has asked a nice question. Would Karula have stashed her cubs to go on the hunt? Absolutely, Tasha. They'd be way too young at the moment. They're probably around about 5 months old at the moment. I'm not exactly sure when they were born, as I'm not always on game drive. But they're probably around about 4 or 5 months old at the moment, and not able to stay with her when she hunts. So she'll move them from one area to another, quite often then going off to hunt, and then either bringing them to kills, if the kill is too large for her to move easily, or bringing the kill back to her cubs again, if it's easy enough to move. And she'll carry on doing this. If there's a male and a female, the male will probably leave her anywhere from about 9 months old to about 16 months old. Female leopards can even stay up to 24 months with their mother or in the vicinity of their mother. So she's got a long time ahead of her still. As they get a bit older, they will start to join her on hunting. But leopard definitely are those solitary cats, very similar to your house cat, that will hunt alone, not cooperatively like you do find with the lions. So with lions, female lions from about 6 months old to about 9 months old, they'll start to join into the hunts and help to bring down prey and to set ambushes. Male lions will join at about 9 months or so and then just sort of get lazier from there until they get kicked out of the pride, but also adding their weight when need be. But leopard definitely, absolutely hunt solitarily. Now, with so little time left, it's time for myself and Gert to say goodbye. As a reminder, though, keep watching. Tomorrow, don't forget, we have Brent, who is right now climbing onto an airplane and flying all the way up to Uganda. We've got a special coming to you on Friday, where we are going to be trying to bring you Safari Live from the gorillas in Uganda. That's exactly right, you heard me, from gorillas, and we're going to try and do it live. Tomorrow we're going to see if we can get into the forest and do a bit of a tester, with the real show being on Friday. Keep your eye on our blogs, we'll keep you updated there, but we're going live with gorillas this week. Yes, please. All right, and on that note, at least from myself, I hope you have a good evening. I'm definitely going to. We will see you again tomorrow, and from myself and Gert, good night and goodbye.
I am so excited. Sorry, we have repositioned, but I'm so excited about these gorillas. I can barely speak about them. The only thing I can say is that it is Rwanda, not Uganda, that the guys will be doing the live filming in. So just a minor correction there. Slight subtle difference between two African countries. But if you think I'm excited, you should have seen how Brent Leo Smith bounced out of here this morning away from camp with a big smile all over his face. I think he cannot wait to head across there. Right, on things closer to home, we have got, once again, award-winning views of Sindile eating from the impala carcass. There's not very much left. I think there's a chance he will be gone by tomorrow. He might stick around in the tree, though, because those lions are very, very close. We'll have a look for them on our way home at the end of our sunset safari. But for now, we have come to the close, and we'll be back here first thing tomorrow to check up on Sindile's progress and Mvula's progress and Karula's progress. So many things to find you, we won't know where to begin. We won't be finding gorillas, but Brent will certainly be on the search for them by Thursday and Friday. I hope you're all as excited as we are for that particularly promises to be a spectacular event. Sindile is about to fall out of the tree, but we have come now. He's not going to, I'm joking. We've come to the end of our sunset safari, so it's time for us to say our goodbyes and thank yous. A thank you to Dave, as well as a thank you to Lou and Rebecca and Chelsea in final control. Most importantly, a big thank you to all of you across the globe watching our live safari twice a day, every day. Have a wonderful day, and join us for the sunrise safari. Bye-bye, everybody.